Hello everyone, it's Tana. Welcome back to the Rabbit Hole Designs YouTube channel. Today we're working with the Seeing is Believing, Utterly Adore, and Otter Play stamp sets, as well as the Making Waves stencil, and we're going to make 4 different interactive cards today. So hang on to your seats. It's a little bit of a longer one, but it was really fun making 4 different interactive cards. So first I have a piece of like pale blue, maybe baby blue cardstock. It was in a pack of pre-cut colored cardstock. And I used my Concord and 9th ink cubes to kind of just add some color around the edges of that. Kind of bring so it looked like there was light in the center of the card panel. We're also going to do, I believe it's this one we do it to, something else later on as well. So this was the only one where I started with colored cardstock instead of white cardstock. Everything else I used white cardstock as the base panel. And it's been a while since I've ink blended. I do believe ink blended this much at least. There was a lot of ink blending this time around. Then we have this second panel here. I started off with tumbled glass. Just a really light coating of it all around the piece of cardstock, which is Bristol Smooth. And then I went in with Uncharted Mariner, and this is all regular distress ink, not oxide. And excuse me if my voice goes out. It was getting better cold-wise, but temperatures are still dropping down into the 40s and 30s at night, so it's a little difficult. Now we have a panel that I ink blended with seafoam ink, and I'm going in with, I believe it's sea glass, and using the Making Waves stencils, all the different plants on the stencil, and ink and blending them towards the bottom of the panel, all in the same color ink for this one. I do end up going in and changing that a little bit later. But I do like when you want the background to remain the background, I do like the monotone look of the same color being used for all the plants. Then I use the sides of the stencil, which are all cut to be different types of ocean waves, and just ink blended down the panel. Next up we have, guess I went back in and did it again. We're going to take that first one with the focal point of the light in the center, and we're going to use I can't remember what it's called, but I will put it down below for you guys. If I haven't already put it on the screen, I missed it. And I'm going to go in with those same Concord and 9th inks, I believe. And we're going to do some sun rays coming down from the top of the water. I believe this is like the slimline stencil beam of light. Hold on, I think I have it right here. Yep, beam of light, that's what it is. Yay, I remembered something. And then I believe there's only 3, so this is the third one here being blended on. Like I said, a lot of ink blending this time around. Well, it's finally starting to get warmer here, guys. I saw that on the Weather Channel app that it's going to be in the 80s next week. I can't believe it. I've been waiting forever for warm weather. I mean, we're almost to June, and I'm still looking at 50 degrees up here in New York State. Okay, now we're back to the beam of light card panel, and I'm adding some plants in there, mainly in pinks and purples. And I did that because I knew what I was going to place on this card, and if you paid attention to the beginning of the video, you saw that I had a whole bunch of pre-colored images from the 3 stamp sets. Now this one, I took and I flipped it upside down, and I made the waves for the top of the ocean. And I have here, I believe it's salty ocean and peacock feathers. And then I went back in, flipping it the opposite direction, and flipping it so it would face the other direction as well, and went back and forth every other line between the peacock feathers and the salty ocean. And I thought it turned out pretty cool. I wasn't sure at first I was going to continue like that, but that's what I ended up doing, and I really did like the way it turned out. Because, of course, you can't just have underwater scenes. You have to have scenes where critters can pop up out of the water. I love ocean life. I love the beach. I love the water. I love everything about it, and I cannot wait to move there. Or at least have another vacation there until I move. You know, if I can't move yet, then I'll take the beach for a week. And then there's that panel. I'll blend it out. And now I wanted to show you, I did it off camera, but I used that same beam of light stencil, and I made a very bright sunshine background to go behind the ocean water. And now this is our first interactive card, and it's kind of like a wiper card maybe, not quite a wiper card, but it will move back and forth. Now I put a penny on the bottom of it to kind of keep the weight down towards the bottom of the card underneath, and so that my dolphin wouldn't flip underneath the water and get stuck. And I used a piece of acetate to cut that out so that you couldn't see the piece that was holding the dolphin in the air. And now I have to use this little circle die cut here, and that is used to place a hole in the cardstock where you will connect the swinging acetate piece with the card itself using a brad, a very tiny brad. But you don't want to put the brad in too tight because you want it to swing freely. So I'll show you how I attached it and then spread it out on the back of the panel. So I placed it through there, and then I used my pointed picker tool. I can't remember what it's called, craft pick. I slipped that under there right against the edge of the brad tongs or prongs so that it wouldn't lay flat against the card, gave it a little bit of movement. Now we're going to pick our sentiment and stamp it right in the bottom right of the card. And I'm going to heat emboss that with clear embossing powder, so I'm going to use my powder tool and some Versamark Clair Nocturne ink. And this one says, just an otter day in paradise, I believe. Yes. And now we have to pop that up on a double layer of foam tape, the ocean water, to make sure that there's enough room for the penny and the swinging mechanism and the dolphin to swing freely behind there. But you want to make sure that you don't put any foam tape where the dolphin or the penny are going to swing. So I just kept testing this out, laying it over my card panel, swinging the penny to see where it touched. It wasn't difficult. I forgot why I peeled this piece of tape off, foam tape. I think I wanted to make it skinnier to ensure that the penny didn't run into it. And now we're going to take all that paper backing off and put a little bit of Nouveau Deluxe adhesive on that and adhere it to the card panel. And we're all done with that part. Now I'm going to tape some double-sided adhesive and place that on the acetate at the top so that I can place my dolphin on the clear acetate piece so he can look like he's jumping through the waves. He's so cute. I thought this card turned out really cute. And then we have an otter that's swimming in a ring, floaty ring. And he will also be swimming in the ocean. But first we're going to pop this whole panel up with one layer of foam tape. And we're going to adhere that to its card base. Or maybe when we're done gluing fish on there. Added some fish and a little paper sailboat on top of the sentiment. Added my otter and his little floaty ring. And then we'll adhere it to its card base. take all the backing off of the foam tape and add some Nouveau Deluxe adhesive. That way I can wiggle it into place and it doesn't stick too soon. And it's just a white 120 pound, I believe it's a 120 pound accent card base. On to the second card. We have a whole bunch of different colored plant life down there, sea plant life, and we're going to glue those into place. And this time I'm using some Barely Arts glue with the finer needle tip. And then we're going to add some fish. And then we have two otters that are going to be swimming and playing with each other. They're the main focus of the card. And I think I add that pink seahorse as well. Now for this card, I took some embossing powder that looks like sand from Hero Arts. Let me just tell you guys, I planned on using this embossing powder on almost every card I made for this video. And then I realized when I went to finish up the cards that my embossing powder just grew legs and got up and walked away. So I don't know if it was Riley or Jackson or maybe the Boogeyman, but now I have to go and buy some more sand embossing powder. And not to mention that none of the other cards had any sand at the bottom of the ocean. So, just problems of a crafter's life with kids, young kids. So there's my sand there. Now I'm going to use these little mini slider dies. And we're going to ensure that our otters can slide back and forth and flip so they can play. So I'm just using a regular circle die for the one that's going to flip around in circles. And then that little U or C-shaped one for the other otter to swim. Now I'm just taking my back panel there and tracing it around the front panel. And I do that so I can ensure where the pieces are being glued, where the foam tape can be and where it shouldn't be. And I also have that same panel. I have it inked up with some of the same Seafoam ink by Catherine Pooler, so that when our critters are swinging or flipping, you don't see white space behind them. You just see more of the same green background. And before we adhere any of them to the panel, we need to put in our sentiment. And it says, "There's no otter like you." And I don't believe I heat embossed this one. So I wanted to point out really quick as well, I've made slider cards where you use little plastic pieces and pennies so they can slide back and forth with the penny being behind the panel. This particular die set came with these little snap pieces, so you have one behind the panel, one in front of the panel, and then they snap together. I used the snap pieces for this card, but I also added a penny to the little slider guide to make sure he had some weight when he was sliding. Now we're just going to finish adding any more creatures we have. And I took the little seashell from one of the stamp sets and I turned it into like a sea flower by stamping it 4 times in a circle. And then I stamped a couple more of the seashells and some hearts, which you'll see me add at the end if they're not already there. And I decided to double up the foam tape on this card as well, once I added the penny, just to make sure it would fit properly. So now I'm going to line it up where I drew that rectangle and everything falls into place where it should be. And once that's dry, we'll put some Nouveau Deluxe adhesive on the back of the panel and place it on a craft A2 size card base. And there's the little hearts above the flipping otter. And that's it for the second card, guys. Now I'm going to use my Crafter's Workshop stencil butter. And I'm using, I believe it's pronounced Terra Vert, which is like a green and turquoise. And that same one where I believe it's the one where I did all the, oh, it's not. So I was wrong, guys. I did not use it on the monotone one. I used it on the turquoise one. But it's got a lot of the same colored plants on this one as well. Just not the original panel, I thought, because, you know, my memory's bad. So I did some green, and then when it dried, I came back and did some turquoise plants and went right over the ink that I had ink blended earlier. And as long as you don't make your stencil butter layer too thick, it won't take that long to dry. I was able to do that in the same night, I think about 25 minutes after I spread it out, and that was just me making sure it was dry. Now I'm going to go back to that purple and pink panel with the very purpley pink plants. We're going to add the other seahorse that I colored, and then we have 3 jellyfish. I colored them all in different pinks and purples. And I really do like this card. I like the colors and everything and the way the jellyfish look. Even my little fish have pinks and purples in them. So, it turned out super cute. I did consider making this card a wobbler, but it was really pushing it with the size wobblers I had. It would have been a tight squeeze trying to fit it behind the starfish's head, if you want to call it that. And then you would have to use the legs to wobble it, and I didn't want them ripping or breaking off. So I used the sentiment strip die from the You've Been Framed die set and stamped out the vacation mode from the Otter Play stamp set. And now we're going to make this a shaker card, a full front shaker card. So I have the Rabbit Hole Designs acetate shaker pockets. I think that's what they were called. And we're going to score all those fold lines there. And I made sure I put a piece of colored cardstock behind my panel so it would make it, I think the recommended size for the shaker panel is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And I just wanted to make sure there was no extra clear plastic showing. So I adhered a mat behind the main panel, and I taped that shut on 3 sides. And then we're going to fill it, and I added just like some light blue sequins, some tan sequins, and some tan sequin seashells. Say that 3 times fast. And then also some blue seed beads, because this is the ocean. And once that was all done, I adhered the pocket closed, added some red line double-sided adhesive to the back of that. And I love that stuff. It's so super sticky and strong. And then I used my Misty, which is the first time I ever remembered to use this tip from Jennifer McGuire, to align my panel so it was nice and straight and even on the front of my card. And it turned out perfect. And I love how clean that shaker front looks because it has that protective cover on it. It just looks so clean and shiny. I added my sentiment strip with some double-sided adhesive and used the T-square ruler to make sure that it was adhered straight on my card. And now we're moving on to the last card of the video, guys. We have that monotone panel with the green plants. And I believe they're the ones I used the stencil butter on. They are. And we're going to start adding what little plant life I added and some fish. And then we have a whale and 2 octopuses. Octopi. How do you say plural for octopus? If you guys know, let me know down in the comments below. Okay, so because most of the time when I color with alcohol markers, I use the Hefty Doodle alcohol-friendly cardstock, but it's a little thin to be using for a wobbler. So I stamped out another octopus on 100-pound cardstock, cut it out, and adhered it behind the first octopus. Now we're going to stamp our sentiment super quick, but I didn't want to use a sentiment that had the word otter in it, which most of these ones do from the 3 stamp sets because there's otters on the stamp sets. So I took the Have an Otterly Amazing Day, and I just did some maneuvering with my purple tape, and I stamped out Amazing Day, and then cleaned off my stamp really well. Lined up my grid sheet again, my Simon Says stamp grid sheet, and then placed have an over, and so it was centered over Amazing Day. And I got lucky because think about it, have a amazing day, of course, wouldn't sound right. We got lucky that both words after the word an both started with a vowel. Because then if not, I would have had to draw an N in there, and it just would not have looked like I stamped it because my handwriting's horrible. So yeah, that was a little lucky. So you don't need to do stamp surgery if you don't want. You just use a little bit of tape, and you can change the sentiment. Added that wobbler on there, and now our octopus wobbles. So that's it for this video, guys. Don't forget to sign up for the Rabbit Hole Designs email so you can be aware of all new releases. Don't forget to sign up for the Facebook group fan page, and also for Instagram. You can be aware of inspiration for new releases every day of the month. And don't forget, there's a new release coming out next week. We'll talk to you guys soon. Bye bye for now.